Welcome to the Dermatology Studio with Dr. Yusra Ayaz.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into two skin conditions that can look incredibly similar, but are actually worlds apart in what causes them: Lichen Striatus and Lichenoid Exanthem. We're going to break down what they are, how to tell them apart, and of course, the best ways to manage them.
So, here's the plan. We're going to start by unraveling the mystery of Lichen Striatus, from its really unique appearance to how it's diagnosed and treated. Then we'll shift gears to its lookalike, Lichenoid Exanthem, and you'll see how managing that one requires a totally different, almost detective-like approach.
Okay, let's kick things off with our first section, the mystery of Lichen Striatus. Our goal here is to really get a handle on this unique linear skin condition, right from the ground up.
So, what in the world is Lichen Striatus? Well, to put it simply, it's a temporary skin rash. It's made up of these little pink or red bumps, what dermatologists call papules. But what makes it so distinctive, so weird, is its pattern. It shows up in a straight line. And it's not random. It actually follows these invisible pathways in our skin called the lines of Blaschko. Think of them as the trails our skin cells took when we were developing as embryos. It's a really fascinating glimpse at our body's own hidden map.
So what causes this? Well, the leading theory is this really interesting two-hit model. The first hit is genetic, a tiny mutation that happens in a single skin cell, way back, very early in development. This creates a whole line of skin cells that are, you could say, uniquely susceptible. Then comes the second hit, an environmental trigger, like maybe a virus. When that trigger happens, boom, it activates the immune system's T cells, but only in that specific line of skin, causing that localized rash we see.
Now, if we were to take a tiny piece of that skin for a biopsy and look at it under a microscope, the story becomes even clearer. In the epidermis, that's the top layer of skin, we see a few key things. Hyperkeratosis and parakeratosis are just fancy words for the outer layer of skin getting thick and not shedding right. We also find these dyskeratotic keratinocytes, which are basically skin cells that have hardened up and died off too early. And finally, you see damage right at the bottom layer, a kind of liquefactive degeneration, right where the top layer of skin meets the one below it.
And if we go a little deeper into the dermis, the inflammation just continues. We see swelling between the cells or intercellular edema, and you'll find these clusters of immune cells hanging out around the blood vessels and hair follicles. All of this inflammation is exactly what's causing the redness and bumps that you actually see on the skin's surface.
This brings us to the triggers, and it's quite a lineup of potential culprits, Because it sometimes runs in families, we know there's a genetic piece to the puzzle, but those environmental triggers seem to be the key. We're talking about things like viral infections, a physical injury to the skin, and even, in some very rare reported cases, vaccines like the MMR have been suggested as a possible trigger. We even see it pop up more often in colder months, which suggests there might be a seasonal thing going on too.
So what does a doctor actually look for when they see this? The classic sign is how suddenly it appears, as this linear band of small, pink, flat-topped bumps. The color is a really big clue. It's pink, not that purplish or violaceous color you see in a similar-looking condition called lichen planus. It also doesn't have those lacy white lines called Wickham's stria or the little central dimples that are trademarks of other rashes. And most of the time, you'll find it on an arm, a leg, or the neck.
And here we go. This is a perfect real-world example. You can see that linear band of papules running right down the patient's leg, clear as day. Notice how it follows that distinct line, almost like someone drew it on with a ruler. This is the absolute classic presentation of Lichen Striatus. Now, beyond that main rash, there are a few other things to keep an eye out for. It can sometimes be itchy, which seems to be more common in adults, and while it usually shows up on the arms and legs, it can also appear on the torso. After the rash finally fades, it often leaves behind patches of lighter skin, and in some cases, it can even mess with the nails, causing things like ridges, splitting, or sometimes even complete nail loss. And just so you know, while it's usually that one single line we've been talking about, it's worth remembering that Lichen Striatus can occasionally get a little creative. It might show up as multiple parallel bands, or even in a pattern that looks a bit like shingles. All right, that brings us to Section 2, Diagnosing and Treating Lichen Striatus. Now that we know what it is and what it looks like, how did doctors actually confirm it and then figure out the best plan of attack?
You'd think with that distinct line, diagnosis would be a slam dunk, right?
Well, not always. Because of that linear pattern, doctors have to rule out a whole list of other conditions that can look suspiciously similar. We're talking linear versions of common things like psoriasis and also some rarer genetic disorders like Derriere disease. Each one has its own subtle clues that help tell them apart.
And to get even more specific, if the lesion is light-colored, what we call hypopigmented, then two other conditions, linear vitiligo and nevoid hypomelanosis, have to be considered and ruled out as well.
So, what's the typical journey for this rash? It's actually pretty predictable. It shows up fast, reaching its full size in just a few weeks. Then, it just slowly fades away on its own, usually disappearing completely within a year. The main thing that can linger is that change in skin color, which can sometimes stick around for years, especially for people with darker skin tones.
So how do you manage it? Well, it really depends on the patient. A skin biopsy is the #1 way to get a definite diagnosis. For kids, it's often not even bothersome and it goes away by itself, so a lot of the time, you don't need to do any treatment at all. But in adults, it can be more widespread and symptomatic, so they often do need some kind of intervention. The treatment approach is really methodical, kind of like climbing a ladder. You start with the simplest options first. So step 1 is often just observation and reassurance, maybe with some topical steroid creams if it's itchy. If that doesn't do the trick, you move to step 2, non-steroidal creams called calcineurin inhibitors. They also work to calm down that local immune response, and in really rare, stubborn cases, there's even been a report of successful treatment using a light-based photodynamic therapy. Okay, time to switch gears. Let's get into our third section, unpacking lichenoid exanthema. And like the subtitle says, this is a trigger-based disorder, and believe me, that is the most important thing to remember about this one. This slide gets right to the heart of it. This is the single most important distinction to make. Lichenoid exanthema might look like the more well-known lichen planus, but their causes are from different planets. Lichenoid exanthema is a reaction to something external, like a medication. Find that trigger, remove it, and the rash goes away. Lichen planus, on the other hand, is an autoimmune condition. That's where the body is attacking itself, and it's often a chronic, long-term problem. So what are these triggers we're talking about? Well, they fall into two main buckets, infections and drugs. And on the drug side, you might be surprised. The list is long and includes a lot of super common medications. I'm talking about blood pressure drugs like beta blockers and ACE inhibitors, antimalarials, and even some of the newer biologic drugs used for autoimmune diseases. This is exactly why getting a thorough patient history is so critical. Just by looking at it, it can be really tough to tell it apart from lichen planus. But the biopsy tells the secret. Under the microscope, we find scattered eosinophils. These are a type of immune cell you usually see with allergic reactions. Finding them in the skin is a huge clue that the cause is a reaction to something external, not a primary autoimmune problem. It's the key piece of evidence that sends doctors on a hunt for a trigger. All right, on to our last section, managing lichenoid exanthema. Given that this whole thing is driven by a trigger, the entire strategy is all about playing detective. The whole game plan here is pretty straightforward, but it takes some serious detective work. Priority number 1, 2, and 3 is to find and get rid of the trigger. Sometimes, tests like patch testing can help pinpoint the culprit. In the short term, corticosteroids can be used to calm down the inflammation and give the patient some relief. But at the end of the day, this condition will only truly resolve once that trigger is gone for good. And this all leads us to a much bigger question for the field of dermatology. You know, as our world exposes us to more and more medications and environmental factors, understanding these reactions becomes more critical than ever. How can we get better at pinpointing these external triggers? Will we develop tools to identify the exact cause for each person, moving beyond just managing symptoms to a future of true personalized prevention? That's the challenge that lies ahead. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.
Thanks for watching. Hit like, share, and subscribe to the Dermatology Studio. Ask your skin queries in the comments below.